This week on Quality Digest Live, we find out how to avoid hiring bad managers.
Plus, the value of the contrarian viewpoint. That and more when we come back.
This week's episode of Quality Digest Live is sponsored by the Baldrige Collaborative Assessment. Work side by side with experts to assess your organization and get customizable, immediate feedback with minimal preparation. Learn more today at nist.gov/Baldrige.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for May 30th, 2014. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest publisher Mike Richmond. Well, when most people think of the phrase disruptive complexity, a negative connotation most likely comes to mind. But a new report from KPMG International offers a more nuanced view of the coming era of increasingly disruptive complexity that most manufacturers are going to be facing in the next few years. In Global Manufacturing Outlook, Performance in the Crosshairs, KPMG surveyed 460 senior executives from 6 industrial sectors in the Americas, Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and the Asian Pacific region. The insights gleaned from the report reveal a lot about the thinking of top manufacturing leaders and how they plan to react to radical changes in their industry. But to understand where manufacturing is going, really, you got to know where it's been. And in recent years, there's really been an explosion of innovation in manufacturing. In fact, in less than a decade, we've seen great advancements in material science, the implementation of additive manufacturing, and synergistic operating models. But with more choices comes greater complexity, so smart manufacturers are learning to refine the so-called art of the possible. It's a phrase they use in the article, I love that, the art of the possible. They're doing that in several ways. The first technique involves, what else? Big data. Hear it all the time. Harvesting and interpreting mountains of information to find the few key drivers of the highest possible drivers of profitability is going to be of ever-growing importance. We talked about this last week, actually. Brian Maskell wrote an article recently, last week, in fact, where he talked about the concept of contributions per minute as a better way of understanding profitability rather than gross margin, and that connects with manufacturing very clearly. Also, manufacturers are stepping up collaborative efforts in research and development in an effort to better monetize innovation. Some, for example, a number of German firms in particular, are focused on what they know as breakthrough innovation. It's self-explanatory. Others are more balanced with incremental innovation, and collaborations between manufacturers helps provide the best of both worlds. So some organizations may be spending a lot of time with breakthrough innovations, and you're trying to hit home runs and you don't maybe hit as many home runs. Sure. And others are doing more incremental stuff, working off of things that are already established and maybe improving them a little bit, and that can be more frequent. So collaborations allow you to get the best of both worlds, where you have the breakthroughs that really matter, and you also have the opportunity to also just do it consistently as well. The other thing is having vision into the supply chain and understanding through IT technology, what your suppliers are doing. The bottom line is manufacturing is growing more complex all the time, but vision, literally and figuratively, are going to separate those that win from those that lose. So for more information on this item, not to mention the other pieces that Dirk and I are going to be covering on today's show, be sure to check out the story links that are always available right below our video player screen right down there.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Okay, so sophisticated artificial limbs have been around for quite a while now. Some of the most amazing have been artificial, I guess you might call them robotic hands, which allow the user to control hand and finger movement using other existing muscles in the arm. What has been missing, though, is the ability to feel. And this is, if you think about it, this is really critically important for a hand. How do you know how tight or loose you are gripping something? So much of what we do with our hands and fingers is really based on the sensory feedback of touch. And this was pointed out in the ASME article this week, Getting a Grip. Without looking at what's in their artificial hands, amputees have no more knowledge of an object's pliability than, as the article pointed out, an excavator excavator operators have, scooping out the rubble.
Yeah, because you can't feel it, right?
Yeah, I mean, and basically, and actually, if you've ever, I've done a little bit of little, heavy equipment, like
backhoeing.
Backhoeing. So
yeah.
it is weird because you're trying to do it all visually. You have no real sense of how hard the shovel is digging down. I mean, it's weird. And the same thing is, these guys have artificial hands, and even if they can manipulate them, it's difficult for them to understand just what they're doing.
Even if you can see it, being manipulated.
Yeah, but you don't know. Are you squishing?
Yeah,
are you breaking somebody's bones?
Exactly.
Okay, so researchers at Switzerland's École Polytechnique Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne. Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne.
Where's Emily when you need her?
Yeah, exactly. Where's our French speaker? At that university, they hooked up amputee Dennis Abo Sorensen to a prosthetic hand. It's actually a robotic hand.
Right.
In the tips of this prosthetic hand, on two of its fingers, they had sensors. And they were these sensors were attached to the fingertips as well as to the tendons of the hand. Signals from those sensors were sent to electrodes planted in the nerves of the remaining part of Sorensen's arm. So if you imagine this, he has this little artificial hand. On the fingertips are these little sensors, and I guess also on what they call the tendons. If you look at them, it looks like little cables on the artificial hand are also connected to sensors. And the idea was that Sorensen, the patient, would be able to sense the object he was gripping and adjust the grip strength accordingly. Now, what was amazing is that he actually picked this up really fast. I mean, that was part of the beauty of this experiment, is the learning curve, I guess, was very quick. And it was a success. I mean, Sorensen could actually tell the shape of a baseball, a bottle, and an orange, as well as its orientation. He was blindfolded, by the way.
Okay.
And so they picked up a baseball. What is it? It's a baseball. It's a bottle. It's an orange. And he could tell how it was oriented. He was also handed a piece of hardwood, a stack of plastic cups, and a package of cotton. And he applied the appropriate grip strength each time. So this was actually a very cool little experiment. Kind of the unfortunate part of that is it was a medical experiment.
Yeah.
So at the end of it, he had to give back his hand.
Yeah.
And I thought, I know one of the last things they would have done with that hand is kind of like, guys, here's what I think about that.
Yeah, right. Give it back. I'm just getting used to it.
Well, this guy had been without a hand for 10 years.
Wow.
And so he got to try, and he knew going in he was going to keep it. I mean, kind of joking around here, but imagine, all of a sudden he's able to grip and sense and feel with his hand he's been missing for 10 years. By the way, Abo, can we have that back?
Yeah, give that back to us. Yeah,
give that back. Maybe in 20 years we'll.
Well, that is the way these tests work, though. I mean, for instance, many times they'll do a drug test, and the patient won't, even if the drug's successful, the patient won't. I mean, generally speaking, if it becomes patented later.
Exactly.
But there's a gap.
But still, it was a fascinating, fascinating little article. So again, kind of one of those interesting things. Robotics, sensors, and how they're more and more becoming integrated into our everyday life.
Our lives. Great stuff. Thanks, Dork, for that one. Okay, well, I spoke a few minutes ago, and we're going to return to this topic. I spoke a few minutes ago about big data as it relates to complexity within manufacturing environments. This next item looks at the topic from a different perspective and asks users of big data to look at big data from a different perspective as well. Big data shouldn't mean business as usual is the name of this article, which comes to us from MIT Sloan Executive Education. We ran the piece in yesterday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. The problem related in this article is that many, if not most companies, are looking at data from a rather limited viewpoint, namely, how can we crunch our internal numbers to discover new ways of cutting costs? That's how most people are using big data, data in general. Instead, or more accurately, in addition to the use of internal data, which, let's face it, isn't going to go away anytime soon, comes the analysis of data from external sources. Things like weather reports and tweets are two examples that the article mentions. Both contain vast amounts of information that savvy companies can mine, especially as it relates to marketing campaigns and gathering intelligence on competitors. What they're talking about here is like in the instance of Twitter, right? Many companies are going to look at Twitter and find out, well, what are people saying about us? But it could be really valuable to say, well, what are people saying about our competitors?
Sure, absolutely.
And you mine that, and you say, well, it seems like a high percentage of people are complaining about a competitor's X product.
Yeah, or
service.
what's their weakness, and you try to exploit that weakness.
Launch a product into that very thing. It's an interesting approach. Now, the ability to interpret this information in meaningful ways is going to allow smart companies to remain one step ahead of their competitors. Like many innovations, that means not settling for the low-hanging fruit by using a new tool in much the same way as everyone else. The true value of innovation is often found in using them, surprise, surprise, in an innovative way. And this is a great example of that. That's what I thought about this. I'm saying, innovation, it's interesting. Innovations are often not innovative. Something is a breakthrough that happens, and people just use it the same way time and time again. And it's like you're thinking, well, it's an innovation. I mean, use it in an innovative way, add to it, expand on it, and eventually you're going to have more breakthroughs. And I think this, I'm a sales guy, I'm in a competitive field. I mean, that's a great tool. I mean, you think about that, you say, well, what is going on with the competitors? What are going on with other areas that we're competing in that we may want to be interested in? And if you can gain that big data edge, exploit it, and understand how to build it in your business, you're going to win.
Right.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. According to 2 large-scale studies conducted by Gallup, only 30% of U.S. employees are engaged at work, and only 13% worldwide are engaged. And what's worse, according to Gallup, during the past 12 years, these low numbers have barely budged, meaning that the vast majority of employees worldwide are failing to develop and contribute at work. And why is that? Well, Gallup estimates that managers account for 70% of variance in employee engagement scores across business units. When managers have real management talent, work groups develop and win customers. When managers don't have talent, human development freezes and work groups fail. In other words, says Gallup CEO Jim Clifton, author of the article Nothing Fixes a Bad Manager, nothing fixes a bad manager.
Nothing fixes a bad manager.
Let us say that once again. Nothing fixes a bad manager. Bad managers are responsible for poor employee engagement. He lays it right at their feet. Clifton points to further data from Gallup that shows that companies fail to choose the candidate with the right talent for the job 82% of the time. That's amazing. Those companies are wasting time and resources attempting to train bad managers to be something that they're not, says Clifton, and nothing fixes the wrong pick. Authentic management talent is very rare. I think we all kind of know this, and Gallup research shows that just 1 in 10 have the natural, God-given talent to manage, and that Clifton says that. So if you think about how people end up in a management position, you see that only a few paths to management really make sense. I mean, think about what some of these are. I mean, kind of the traditional way is working your way up the ladder. It's you've been here, 10 years, and you started off, a janitor, and gosh, I guess it's time. You're there. It's time to be a manager. You kind of work your way up through the company. Another method is a management hole opens up, and it has to be filled. So someone gets tossed into the position because somebody's got to fill it. And gosh, you seem to know more about that department, let's say, than anybody else, so you're the manager. Or people are brought in from the outside rather than promoted from within. By the way, sometimes this makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. Probably another way, and you see this typically in startup, is the person who starts a company becomes a manager in some way. They may be the CEO, the president, or so forth. And I've been in several startups, and it is actually an issue, and it's something that venture capitalists are aware of, or a board, if a company has a board, a startup has a board, is that very often the person who has the bright idea and develops this product that's going to make millions of dollars has no idea on how to run a company or how to manage people. But they started the company.
Right.
So, well, of course this is the CEO. Right, and sometimes they're good, and sometimes they aren't. Smart venture capitalists, smart boards will say, you're great, you have an awesome product, we want somebody else to run the company.
You know, they're very discrete talents, and I think that what you're getting to here is the fact that management is a discrete talent. It is something that it can be learned, but there is an ability there to manage, and just like there's an ability there to create a breakthrough product, and they aren't necessarily housed in the same person. And like you say, VC people understand that just because you had a great idea that maybe can potentially make a lot of money, you may not be the person that can extract from that idea the vein of profit that it can get to. I mean, that's
or gather the people, or lead the people who are responsible for getting that product to market successfully.
Yeah, well, that's why people like Steve Jobs are so incredibly rare, because I mean, he really kind of was both. I mean, he had both the ability to understand the product part of it and to manage the company, even though he was kind of a dictator. But I mean, from what we know now. But I mean, you know, there is that rare quality that some people have, but many don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the problem, as Mike was just saying, is that some of these people just aren't natural managers. I mean, a gifted manager. I mean, think about what a gifted manager. I think we all have, hopefully, in our work career, had gifted managers, and that kind of person, you know, they know how to, I don't know, they know how to motivate every individual on their team. They know how to boldly review performance, build relationships. They overcome adversity, and they make decisions based on productivity, not politics. A manager with no real talent for the job will deal with workplace problems through manipulation and unhelpful office politics, says Clifton, because they lack the interpersonal courage required to manage teams effectively. You know who I'm talking about.
Okay.
I see you all shaking your heads out there. You're sitting in your office going, "Oh, dude, you're looking right through my computer. My manager's right next door." You met him. Mm-hmm. And this article really resonated with me. I mean, I guess it's hard to be a good manager. Anybody who's had to go into that position can tell you that it's hard to be a good manager if you care about what you're doing. It's hard to, you know, be in charge and call the shots and do it fairly. Talk about hiring and firing. Can you put aside office friendships or dislikes and make personnel decisions that are fair and honest? Can you handle office drama in a way that diffuses negative situations and also sets a positive tone for the future?
Right.
Excuse me. Can you encourage when encouragement is needed? Can you mentor when it's needed?
You okay?
I'm kidding. It's choking me up. It's choking me up. So, I mean, essentially, you've got all these skills that are important for a manager, and not everybody can do it. I mean, they just can't.
Well, I think what you said there earlier in the piece was this idea that you may fall to manipulation, you may get involved with office politics, and it may not be necessarily that you're a bad person because you do that. You just don't know how not to.
Yeah.
Again, we're getting to the point. We're getting to the idea here that it is a skill. It is a skill that can be learned, but it is a skill. It's not just something that you just can just do, and anybody can just do. It takes understanding of what that role is and some experience too.
And it takes nurturing. Kind of a last point here. So we remember I mentioned earlier here that according to Gallup, 1 in 10 people have the natural God-given talent to manage. But the good news is Gallup also found that another 2 to 10 people have some characteristics of basic managerial talent and can function at a high level in their company if the company coaches them and supports them. So management talent exists in your company right now, more than likely. You just have to identify who has that raw talent and then nurture it. It doesn't necessarily come naturally, but there are people there who I think we kind of sometimes understand those people who have the skills, but they need refining, they need fine-tuning. Hopefully there's somebody within the company that can take them under their wings and mentor them. And I mean, I worked for a long time ago. I worked for a company where there was this manager. He was an ex-IBMer. Mm-hmm. This guy was probably the best manager I've ever known in my entire life, and other people in the company knew it. And he would actually take people who were kind of coming up through the ranks, and he would mentor them. Mm-hmm. And he did an amazing job. I mean, I met some of these guys later. He passed away a few years ago, and I met some of his mentorees, and it was just like, man, this guy just taught me so much on what it means to be a manager and how you do this job. Mm-hmm. And it takes somebody like that to do it.
It does, and we talk many times about the idea of tribal knowledge in organizations as being not necessarily a good thing because it kind of goes away. It's not codified, but tribal knowledge can work. In that case, where you have people that are active in mentorship and want to help their company raise up that next generation, tribal knowledge is really key, and it can be really beneficial for people who just have that boots on the ground knowledge that are willing to share it. Because, hey, we've done it this way, this worked, this didn't. That's valuable stuff, and that's management.
Yep.
That's management right
So
there.
look for a manager in your, or potential manager in your office space, and
that's right.
Get them going.
Hug a manager today.
Hug a manager today.
And if you're not going to hug a manager today, hug a contrarian today. And that's actually the kicker. Kicker is the subhead for those of you who aren't in the editorial world. The kicker,
non-publishing geeks.
That's right. Okay. Kicker is the subhead, and it's the subhead of an article we ran this week, actually in Quality Digest Daily, called "The Devil on the Bus" by Kevin Meyer, and that appeared in Tuesday's issue of Quality Digest Daily, first day this week after Memorial Day. And yes, you can see right there. The kicker is hug a contrarian today. Yes, we all love a contrarian viewpoint, right? All of us,
right? Sure.
That's a joke.
Yeah.
We all love a contrarian viewpoint? It's a joke. It's a little joke.
It's a little joke.
You get it? No? Okay. Well, maybe that's just me. I have a strange sense of humor. What can I say? Okay. It's a tough room. Try the veal. I'm here all weekend. Okay. Well, the title of this is, again, The Devil on the Bus. It's a mix of metaphors that Kevin Meyer is using here. The devil part of this comes from the phrase the devil's advocate, which we all know is one of the few great Keanu Reeves movies. There were not many. There's a few. So it comes from the devil's advocate, which goes back to, actually, I didn't know this, it goes back to the 16th century Catholic Church. Thank you, Kevin Meyer, for giving me this information. The devil's advocate was a role that was officially called the promoter of the faith. And this was the person, I guess it was probably a cardinal in most cases, who, when the church was deciding who would become a saint, was the one to say, wait a minute, let's look at this person's history. You know, yes, we think this was all great that this person did, these miracles, but let's dig back and let me be the contrarian to say this person shouldn't be beatified, shouldn't be canonized. So that devil's advocate, obviously after the language, we all know it really well. The bus part of his title, The Devil on the Bus. The bus part comes, and it's actually also probably pretty well known by most people out there, from management guru Jim Collins, who advocated that managers should get the right people on the bus and get them in the right seats too, which is a corollary to that. What Collins was saying, and it's actually kind of misinterpreted, is that you want to have people that are going to be on the team, are going to support your vision, but it doesn't mean, which again sometimes gets misinterpreted, it doesn't mean that everybody thinks alike. It doesn't mean that everybody is a yes man to the boss. You talked about good managers. Well, good managers kind of need good employees too, and you need good employees to tell you the truth and not just tell you what you want to hear because of whatever, you want to move up the ranks or whatever it may be. So I think if you put those two things together, what you get here is the point of Meyer's article, which is that there's extreme value in the contrarian viewpoint, especially in organizations where there tends to be a kind of a vanilla perspective. Those contrarians are really valuable because they're the ones that are willing to maybe step out of line a little bit and disagree with power, talk truth to power. And that's really healthy. It's not healthy when everybody says the same thing, thinks the same way, and because what happens is you don't really bring in any fresh ideas. You don't bring any new DNA into the culture, and eventually you just kind of go off the cliff, right? I mean, a boss says, "Well, we're going here," and people don't really think for themselves about what that means using their own experiences. They say, "Sure, boss, you go, man. You go, gal," and
right
boom,
off the cliff.
then we're done, right? That's not the way you want to do it. You want to have those contrarians. Now, there's a fine line here. I should point this out. There's a fine line here between being a contrarian and being a constantly negative,
obnoxious
pain.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a fine line there, but sometimes you have to err on the side of giving people the room to vent, because I think that from that roistering of the ideas comes the contrarian viewpoint that you really want. So I think you can't be afraid of that either. What you want, I think, is an atmosphere that encourages people to let fly with considered opinions. Again, you're not just spewing your conspiracy theory. You have a considered opinion. Manager hired you for a particular purpose because you have knowledge or experience. So you've considered a perspective, and you need to bring that out. You need to explore your thoughts on that, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. If team members are afraid to do so, you might need to take the advice of W. Edwards Deming and drive some fear out of your organization. I mean, that's really the core of this. I mean, people don't say things they think are true not because they don't think them. I mean, people have interior landscapes all the time, whether they own up to them or not. the problem is fear. I mean, people are afraid. You've maybe established a culture where people get canned for not aligning with the vision. If you're doing that and you're in a managerial position, look at that hard. You're driving in fear into your organization, and you're not going to profit from doing that.
You know, I want to back up just a little bit, because you said something that I think is important. You said from let's say from the employee's point of view, from the contrarian employee's point of view, is that it's fine to offer other opinions, but be conscious of how you do it. Not everybody is conscious of how they do it, and there are employees who are just obnoxious in the way they present contrarian views. And then coming back to the management point of view is, even though it's difficult, I think a good manager tries to look beyond the obnoxiousness. It's like, okay, this guy could have presented this contrarian view in a much more polite way, but is he or she saying something that makes sense? Can I look beyond the approach or the tone and see, is there actually a nugget of truth? Is there's some value in it? And then afterwards go and talk to the person and say, great idea, but by the way, next time you present it, would you be a bit more polite? But I mean,
and let's be true. I mean, whether you take the idea or not, the process of that, the going through that process, honestly, is the point.
Yeah.
Is that type of reflection is the point. Whether you embrace the contrarian's idea or not, have you really examined it? Have you had the courage to look at it? And good leaders are never scared of the truth, but they are scared of one particular truth, the unspoken truth. Because if there's an unspoken truth that somebody on your team knows to really be true from their experience that maybe you don't have as a leader, again, if you have a fear-based culture where you're not giving them the opportunity to bring that out, you're really losing, because there's a truth out there that you don't know. You haven't factored in somebody's knowledge and experience and expertise in a decision. It's probably a big decision that you have to make. And if you don't do that right, if you miss on that, you're going to have a big problem. And you're going to probably have problems down the line or immediately. It could show up at any time. So I like this piece. Kevin Meyer's really got a nice voice and good advice. So check that one out. Again, Devil on the Bus, Kevin Meyer. It's right below the player page right down there. You can check it out and read it for yourself.
That's right. Okay. And that's gosh, the end of our show.
That's our show. Yeah, gosh, we're at our half hour. That's our show. But before we go, we'd like to thank this week's sponsor, the Baldrige Performance Excellence Program. Imagine working side by side with a team of Baldrige experts to collaboratively assess your organization and identify your strengths and opportunities for improvement. Minimal preparation is required. Every assessment is customizable, and all assessments provide immediate actionable feedback to improve your organization's performance. Learn more about the Baldrige Collaborative Assessment today at the Baldrige website, or just click on the banner just below or just to the right of the video player screen. And Dirk, I know you're going to wrap up, and I know we're kind of at the end of our time, but I want to take a personal minute to do one more thank you.
Okay.
Because we actually missed this last week, and I don't know if the date of May 23rd, 1994 means anything to you.
No.
No. Really? It doesn't? May 23rd, 1994 was your first day of work here at Quality Digest.
Gosh.
And I forgot to mention that on last week's show.
20 years?
You've been here for 20 years.
You were like 50.
You were just a fresh-faced young stud muffin with a lot of hair. Look at that.
Wow.
I think that was actually a little bit before you started here, but look at that guy. Wow.
Oh, gosh.
That was like, here's the 20 more.
You forgot the one with the mullet. You forgot my mullet.
I think the mullet is there. But Dirk, thank you for 20 years of service. Now, Dirk, traditionally, it's known that after 20 years,
where's my gold watch?
People get a gold watch. I was just going to say that. We're actually a little short, so we kind of put our minds together and we said, well, you know what, Mike, as a leader of the organization, you got to sacrifice. So, Dirk, from my father to you, you can have.
Is this your fake Piaget or what's
my imitation?
Your imitation Gucci?
No, it's actually a Gucky.
A Gucky. Oh yeah, G-U-C-K-I. Oh, you're right, Gucky.
It's Gucky. It's straight from Leningrad. Anyway, Dirk, thank you,
buddy.
Thank you for 20 years of great work, man. You're the best. Couldn't ask for a better partner.
Oh my God.
So go ahead now. You can wrap up.
Yeah, I wrap up. Sorry. Been here so long I can hardly remember what I'm supposed to say. Well, thank you for joining us again for Quality Digest Live. Big management issue in Bay 20 years, so I can say whatever I want. So.
That's
All
right.
Hope you guys have a great weekend, and we will see you again next week.
Have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.